On today's episode, Jay Ruggiero and the Tough Mudder 5K preview.
This is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome to the world's toughest podcast, where we talk about any obstacle course race you'd like, as long as that's world's toughest mudder. Each week we talk to members of the WTM community and share stories of success and failure in the single greatest event in OCR. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the world's toughest podcast.
Welcome back to the world's toughest podcast. We are now less than 100 days out from world's toughest mudder. You need to do two things right now. One, you need to sign up. Prices are going to go up on August 17th for world's toughest mudder. You may be able to find a discount code floating around online, but the prices are not going to get cheaper than they are right now. So you need to sign up before August 17th. I'm talking to you, Carlo Piscatello. The second thing you need to do is go running. Don't listen to this podcast in your car. Listen on your run. You've got headphones, come on. It doesn't matter whether you're trying to get 50 miles or 75 miles or 100 miles. You are going to have to physically move your body every inch of those miles. Maybe you hate running. That's fine. I don't love it. But here's the thing about running. Even training runs, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And the better you get at something, the more you enjoy it. You know how people are always trying to talk about finding their passion? Do you know what people are passionate about? People are passionate about the things they're good at. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but I will make you a promise. If you go running today and tomorrow and every day for the next 3 weeks, you will not hate running anymore. You might not love it, but you will not hate it. If you're going to run every day and you haven't run much lately, just do short runs every day. Go slow. Run like a mile, 2 miles, and take your time. Do like a 12, do a 14-minute mile. There's no rush and no one else is timing you. I promise you, you will not hate running after 3 weeks, and it'll be easier to train for World's Toughest Mudder to do the running that you need to do to get ready. I am not a doctor or a physical anything, so this is not medical advice. You are at risk yourself. Do what you're going to do. But if you want to not hate running anymore, you need to do that. In fact, I'll more than promise you it'll work. I will bet you a bottle of pickle juice that if you run every day for 3 weeks and you hate running now, at the end of those 3 weeks, you won't hate it anymore. Shoot me an email at willhicks@gmail.com before you start and let me know you want to take me up on that bet. I will keep you honest. So I've been out of town, and there's a few things I want to briefly talk about before we talk to Jay Ruggiero about Tough Mudder 5K. CBS aired the first 2 episodes of America's Toughest Mudder. Did you see them? The first episode was Los Angeles, and the second episode was Atlanta. We're going to talk more about the TV coverage in an upcoming episode, but I just wanted to say briefly, they were great. They were really, really good. The next episode to air will be Philly. It airs on August 19th, and TMX, Tough Mudder, the 1 mile Tough Mudder X course, will air on August 27th and September 3rd. If you haven't seen the shows yet, Los Angeles or Atlanta, I don't know what to tell you. I can't find them anywhere online, legally or otherwise. The only thing I saw was someone who had it recorded on their TiVo, and then they shared it on Facebook Live, like through their phone, pointing at the TV. In addition to not being a doctor, I'm also not a lawyer, but I'm like 90% sure that's not legal. Don't get in trouble, guys. So what did you think of the shows? Shoot me an email, willhicks@gmail.com. Did you see yourself on the program? Oh, Piss and Cocks. They have a new episode of Community Questions out. It just came out yesterday or the day before. Community Questions is a thing they do once in a while where they'll have an open thread on the World's Toughest Facebook group, and people ask them questions, and then they answer the questions in their video segment. They've done this for a while, and it's gotten better the longer they've done it. If I could steal one thing from Piss and Cox, it would be the 2017 version of Community Questions. If I could steal two things, I would also steal the 2015 version of Josh's hair. I'll link to their episode on the World's Toughest Facebook page at facebook.com/World's Toughest Pod. But one question from Chun-Zak Lee caught my attention.
Heard a rumor that WTM will be back on the East Coast next year. While volunteering at Toughest Pennsylvania, I talked to some of the build guys, and they said it's East Coast in 2018 and will never go international.
I don't feel there was a question in there.
So according to a guy on the build crew, 2018 World's Toughest Mudder will not be international, and it will be on the East Coast. If that's true, here's what I think that means. I believe they can hold World's Toughest at any venue they currently hold the Tough Mudder at. If they can handle 8 or 10,000 people for a weekend, they can handle 2,000 or 2,500 for a weekend also, even with tents and a pit area. So they could go anywhere. But I would think the leading contenders for 2018 World's Toughest would have to be the cities that they are holding Toughest Mudder at, the 8-hour events. There are going to be 6 toughest events this year. There's already been 5. Chicago is still coming up. One of those 6 was in England. So if we're not going international, according to this build guy, then England is out. One was in Canada, in Whistler, which technically is international also. Yes, I know. But it's close enough that if they wanted to, they could. But Whistler has 0 chance at hosting World's Toughest because the location the venue that they hold Toughest Mudder at has a famous ski hill. I say famous. Name me 3 ski hills. There's no such thing as a famous ski hill. But they're not going to have World's Toughest at Whistler. It's a ski resort. It's not going to happen in November. So there's 4 left. LA is out because it's West Coast. And remember, our build guy says we're going on the East Coast. And also, LA is so close to Las Vegas that if they decided not to do Las Vegas, they would not just go 4 hours down the road to LA. So we're down to 3 possible toughest locations. And one other location that I want to mention in a minute. Longtime World's Toughest vets already know what I'm talking about. The 3 remaining toughest locations are Philly, Chicago, and Atlanta. Chicago seems unlikely because of the weather in Chicago, until you remember that the first 3 World's Toughest were held at Raceway Park in New Jersey. In November, and one time in December. So I don't think the weather in November would automatically disqualify Chicago. I think Chicago actually has a strong chance. Let's talk about the other 2 options, though. Philly. Philly has a chance, but I think if they're thinking about Philly, they'd go in a different direction. I think Philly's a no. So Atlanta, no. No. Sorry, Matt B. Davis. It's not going to be in Atlanta. Yes, the course was great there for toughest, but there's 2 things working against Atlanta. One is the property that Tough Mudder uses as a venue in Atlanta is being sold or is in the process of being sold to be developed as a film studio. Georgia and Atlanta are big filming locations now. Walking Dead films there. The Last Avengers or the next Avengers movie is filming there right now. Or filmed there recently, I guess. This is not the World's Toughest Avengers filming podcast. I have no idea, honestly. So that the property in Atlanta will not be available shortly. The second thing going against Atlanta is their terrible airport. Atlanta Sharpsfield Airport is terrible. If they held World's Toughest in Atlanta, I would fly into Philly and then drive down. I would rather take a boat from California all the way around than fly into that Atlanta airport again. The other location I've heard talk about is Raceway Park in New Jersey, where Tough Mudder was originally held for its first 3 years. A lot of the long-time World's Toughest vets have a lot of affection for Raceway, even though it was always miserable there. If you look at pictures from Raceway Park, from those first 3 World's Toughest Mudders, man, it looks brutal. I think the history of Raceway Park makes it a contender for 2018, and I think the central location and expected high turnout for Toughest Chicago makes Chicago and New Jersey the leading contenders for an East Coast 2018 World's Toughest Mudder. Speaking of traveling, I just got back from a big family vacation. with my family. We've had it scheduled for a while, so that is why I was not at TMX a few weeks ago. We are going to talk all about TMX in an upcoming episode. So on this big family trip, we went to England, we went to Italy, and we went to France. And overall, we had a great time. I promised my wife I wouldn't say anything negative about Paris. But we went to London, and the people were so nice. And we went to Italy, and the people were so nice. And we went to Paris. London was really great, though. I am looking forward to Toughest Mudder England next year. I've talked about this before. It's held on Mother's Day weekend, which is tough for a married guy from the U.S. to pull off. But negotiations are underway in the Hicks household. Matt Davis and I have talked about this, and Chris Betcher and I talked about it on air a couple weeks ago. Traveling to a ton of OCR races can be tough on a marriage. You have obligations at home. You have kids to take care of. My wife's a good sport about it, though. There's a lot of worse hobbies a guy could have. And that's why it's so great when you see couples that race together, like Joe Perry and his wife, or Ryan Atkins and Lindsey Webster, or Jim Campbell and his camera. So I'm looking forward to Toughest in England, but I won't go if it's in France. They sacre bleu it. And I don't want to hear any boo-hoo, oh, you got the vacation in the City of Love and didn't like it. Poor baby. First of all, City of Love is 100% marketing. You are the sucker for falling for that. How about this? World's Toughest Mudder, the Race of Love. That's all that is. Same thing with Paris, City of Lights. Do you know what other city has lights? All of them. Paris has the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre, and that's it. Calm down, Paris. Two more things before we talk to Jay about Tough Mudder 5K coming out this weekend. Tough Mudder released a picture of the bibs for the national teams for World's Toughest Mudder, and they are hot. They will get you in the mood for some 24-hour action. You can see the pic on the World's Toughest Mudder community group page or on our Facebook page at facebook.com/World's Toughest Pod. Just to review, there are two different team categories this year. The first category is the same team category as last year, exactly the same, the one that John Albin and Ryan Atkins won with 105 miles. John and Ryan are both expected to move over into the individual category, where they're going to be chasing the $50,000 bonus for the winning male who gets 110 miles. And just as an aside, it drives me crazy when people say the $50,000 bonus or the $5,000 bonus for toughest, the $50,000 bonus for world's toughest, is for the first person to get 50 miles or the first person to get 110 miles for the men or 100 miles for the women. It is not for the first person. It is for the winning person if they also happen to get 50 miles or they also happen to get 110 miles. That is how it says it in the rule book. And I know it sounds better to say it the other way, but if Chad Trammell had gotten 50 miles before Ryan Atkins got 50 miles, and then Ryan Atkins had done 55 miles, and Chad only made 50, Ryan Atkins would have got that bonus, not Chad Trammell, even though in this story I'm making up, Chad got the 50 miles first. Now, it's never happened where the person who hit the mileage first didn't also win, so it's kind of a moot point. But man, someday it could happen, and someday it probably will happen. They say it on the TV show. I just heard them say it about, I don't know if it was about Atlanta or about LA, but I just heard it. It is not the first person to hit 50 miles. It is the winning man or woman if they also hit the mileage mark. It drives me crazy every time I hear that. Okay, so two team categories. First team category, exactly the same as a team category from last year. The second team category is brand new. It'll feature national teams and probably multiple teams from the same country. They'll be made of teams of 4 or more members, all from the same country. Tough Mudder hasn't released the full rules yet, but they have released a brief overview. Here's what they said. Competitors must all be registered participants of the same nationality. You must fill out a national team 4+ application by September 1st to run as a national team. You must complete the first lap and the last lap as a full team. All other laps require at least 50% or more of the team on course to have laps count toward overall mileage. All relay laps completed between the first and last lap can be completed by any combination of team members. Teams are allowed to disband and continue the event as individuals, However, each athlete will only be credited with miles and laps they have individually completed up to that point. Individuals within teams will still be eligible for mileage perks based on their individual achievement within the event. National teams will be eligible to win cash prizing in the national team category. All teammates must have achieved contender status for team to receive contender perks. Within the national team relay category, teams may also register as either first responder or armed services of their particular nation. All team members must be of the same nationality and affiliated with the chosen service category for the team to be eligible for this additional category. In summary, up for grabs this year in the national team category are the following prizes: $10,000 for the winning team, $4,000 for runner-up, $2,000 for the third place team. A national team cup for the winning national relay team, first responder trophy for best performance by a relay team comprised of first responders, armed services trophy for best performance by a relay team comprised of armed services members or veterans. Something that's not totally clear from the memo Tough Mudder put out is, does the whole team have to qualify as contenders in order to qualify for prize money? I'm going to guess no, because of the line, national teams will be eligible to win cash prizing in the national team category. But it could easily be that the whole team does have to be contenders to qualify for prize money based on the line, all teammates must have achieved contender status for a team to receive contender perks. One of the perks of contender status is you're eligible for prize money. So that being said, they're clearly trying to get international teams, and they're also trying to get international teams that are all comprised of the same group of emergency services, like all firefighters or all EMTs, all police officers, all international military members from the same country, four Royal Air Force guys from England. They're not going to require 4 bomberos from Honduras to have contender status to be eligible for the cash prizes. What we do know for sure is if you want to compete in the national team category, you need to find 3 teammates from the same country and sign up no later than September 1st. That's really close. We're almost in the middle of August already. You can find a link to sign up at toughmudder.com or at the World's Toughest Facebook page, facebook.com/World's Toughest Pod. I expect the German team, Getting Tough, to do well here, as well as the Australian team. The US and Canada could probably dominate this category, but I think the big guns from those 2 countries are going to race in the individual category, chasing the $50,000 bonus. If they didn't have the 100-mile $50,000 bonus for the women this year, I think this is the year that Amelia Boone and Stephanie Bishop maybe would form a co-ed team. Because with the relay format, if you got a guy like Wesley Kerr, who placed 4th last year, did 40 miles at LA Toughest, and put him and another equally strong guy on a team with Amelia Boone and Stephanie Bishop, and that was like your 4-man team. You put Chris Mendoza in there. He got 3rd place. You could have a co-ed team that is strong, and I would put money. I wish there was a betting. We're in Vegas. Come on. I wish I could bet on World's Toughest Mudder. That team would win the relay category. Stephanie Bishop, Amelia Boone, Wesley Kerr, and Chris Mendoza. Somebody make that happen. But I don't think that's going to happen. I know Amelia's training to run 100 miles. She's talked about that on her Instagram. Stephanie's talked that she wants to get it. Anyway, I think if they keep this format for next year, and if they tweak the bonuses again like they tend to every year, I think we could see a co-ed team that could actually win the whole thing, or win their team category. I say actually, in 2014, Deanna Blegg led her team Australia. They got 2nd place to Hunter McIntyre's 1st place team. But Deanna Blegg and Australia gave Hunter McIntyre and his team everything they could handle. We haven't had a strong co-ed team since then, though. Maybe this 4-man team becomes the co-ed category. Maybe you have to have at least 1 woman on your team. Or maybe it's 50-50. They're strong women, man. Allison Ty could kick my butt any day. Not like literally, like I could probably take her in a fight, but I mean like in a race. She'd destroy me. And she has 3 times. LA, Atlanta, Whistler. Last thing before we talk to Jay, let's read some iTunes reviews. Awesome podcast, 5 stars, by Awesomer Than You and Your Mom. Awesomer Than You and Your Mom. It took me way longer than I like to admit to figure out how to write a review, but this is the best podcast. I listen every week on my long run. First of all, stay away from my mom. That's weird. But thank you for the review, Awesomer Than You and Your Mom. I appreciate it. Good stuff. Will is great. 5 stars by SmithX360. Have yet to do a Tough Mudder, but follow OCR religiously. Will gives us great interviews, interesting stats, and good humor. Keep it up. 5 stars. Thank you, SmithX360. Thank you for the review, and also thank you for not mentioning my mom. I don't hear anyone else talking about Matt B. Davis's mom in his reviews. I'm sure she's very nice. Smooth, 5 stars by My2KS. Excellent, professional, informative, and just so much better overall than some of the other OCR coverage out there. Will does a fantastic job putting together a quality production. Even though the show is WTM-centric, he does a great job covering the full range of Tough Mudder news and making it accessible to neophytes and the old-school diehards. The audio is smooth and quality is consistent. Episodes and interviews are coherent, well-developed, and on topic. World's Toughest Podcast Facebook posts are also helpful with insightful stats, and the World's Toughest Podcast wall is a great place to go for a one-stop link shop. Thanks for making this podcast and keep up the great work. My2KS, you are too kind. I appreciate you saying that. Those are very kind words, and I appreciate you taking the time to write that. It legitimately means a lot to me. Thanks to everybody who left reviews. My2KS, SmithX360, and Awesomer Than You and Your Mom. Like awesomer than the two of us put together? I doubt that very much. If you'd like to leave a review like these 3 guys did and get your words read on air, go to iTunes and search Tough Mudder. We're the first podcast that pops up. Click the World's Toughest Podcast logo and then click Ratings and Reviews. Click Write a Review and you're good to go. Be honest when you're writing. What you like, what you don't like. I appreciate the feedback. I have changed things I do on the show based on reviews people left. I don't even care how many stars you leave. That's not true. I've had this conversation with my wife. It's not that I don't care what restaurant we go to. It's that I don't have a preference. Of course I care. Maybe I prefer we go to the nice Mexican restaurant I like instead of the nice sushi restaurant you like. Speaking of pre-race nutrition, what are your guys' thoughts on Walmart sushi? Asking for a friend. Let me know, willhicks@gmail.com. It's time to talk to Jay Ruggiero. Let's go to the phones. Jay Ruggiero, tell me about your first World's Toughest Mudder.
Will, I left a lot on the table last year when I ran my first World's Toughest Mudder. 2016 was my first event, sponsored by Team Mud Beast. And unfortunately, coming out of Kiss of Mud on my 3rd lap, I blew my knee out and pulled. Luckily, I didn't tear anything, but I stretched all the ligaments in my knee. I proceeded to limp back to the pit area, rested for the night, and went out and knocked out one more lap of about 3 hours the following morning to at least get my headband and knock out 20 miles in my first Worlds.
Kiss of Mud, crawling under barbed wire. How'd you blow out your knee?
The funny thing was, I got all the way through the obstacle, no problem, doing a trench crawl. And when I came up to leave the obstacle, the muddy area after the barbed wire, my leg actually slid out to the side. And I basically did a split down on the desert floor. And when I got to the bottom, I felt a pop in my knee.
Has that ever happened to you before?
No. I had never suffered anything like that before. I've got a lot of mileage on my knees and did a good amount of strength and conditioning last year getting ready for Worlds. Didn't have any issues, didn't have any tenderness, nothing. It was just a fluke injury that the desert kind of came up and bit me last year.
You said it was your first event. Was it your first Tough Mudder event or your first OCR event?
No, it was my first Worlds. At that time, it was my 11th overall event. My first Tough Mudder was in May of 2014 at Chicago. That was when I was first introduced to Tough Mudder and OCR in general.
How did you decide to do World's Toughest?
I had gone out to spectate a couple of years and was fascinated by it. From the time I ran my first Tough Mudder, back then, you could register for a future event in Mudder Village right after you got done with your first event or your previous event. So by the time I left the venue from my first event, I was already registered for my second. And it caught on like wildfire. My first year I ran 2 events. The second year I ran 3. And the third year I ran 6, including World's Toughest. Last year was the first year I multi-lapped. The first year I ran both Saturday and Sunday events, and wanted to get to the next challenge and challenge myself to do the 24-hour event.
Are you going to run this year?
Yes, I am. I am already registered and looking for some redemption in the desert. I actually started on Facebook for those folks who have not hit 50 miles yet. We have a 50-mile team. So basically a Facebook group specifically for Worlds, just to help motivate each other, share nutritional ideas, share endurance ideas, share workout ideas. And we're trying to motivate each other so that anyone who has a 50-mile goal who has not met it yet, help them get that extra drive they need. And we're also talking about getting some sort of bandanas or something to, identify those folks out on the course in November at World's Toughest Mudder.
Sure. Talk about the group. What are some common topics or common questions that you guys get in your group?
One of the biggest questions is around the fact that it is as much mental as it is physical. Obviously, you need to do your strength and conditioning. You need to develop your upper body. You need to develop your core. You need to have cardio involved and high-intensity interval training. So you've got to have all of these, intangibles when you go to Worlds, but the mental aspect of how many times you're actually out on course and how something so minute could derail your entire effort, or something so massive and you just focus straight through it. So a lot of what we talk about is how to get through the mental difficulties and endure through the night.
Do you guys talk about pacing for 50 miles? Is that a common question that comes up?
We have talked about pacing a little bit, and what I'm trying to do as we lead up to the final weeks, if you will, because we're only about 13 and a half weeks away, we're trying to get a couple of the more seasoned veterans basically to act as panel sponsors and speak to some of those questions of how to pace, keeping together with common folks who have a common goal and what those times look like, and how to minimize your pit times, making sure you've got an efficient pit crew, things of that nature to make sure that you can get your way to 50 miles. Because while some folks can run 3 laps on a standard Saturday during a Tough Mudder event, it's much more difficult to muster that drive. Even though you can make 30 miles in 8, that doesn't translate to 90 miles in 24. It's that drive through the night and the clothing changes and almost playing a mental chess match with yourself to make sure that you plan ahead of, okay, I just started lap 2. What am I doing on lap 3? Because the climate change in the desert happens so rapidly that those 2 hours that you spend out on course can make or break your entire event.
If someone is looking to run 50 miles in one day, how many miles should they be able to run in a week as far as training leading up to that?
Will, that's a great question. That discussion point has actually been brought up by, I posed it in the 50-mile group, and depending on who you ask, the answers always change. There are some folks who will go into Worlds and will do a 15-mile run on a Saturday and a 15-mile run on a Sunday, and then they'll run 5 or 8 miles a day during the week and condition themselves that way. There are other folks who will run 3 to 4 miles a day and maybe 8 miles on the weekends. So there's no prescriptive method to it. Most of the folks that I've seen the greatest success in, amongst non-contenders, if you will, are folks that are out there on a regular basis getting maybe 10 or 12 miles each day on the weekend and anywhere between 4 to 8 during the week.
How many people are in your group right now?
The idea was actually hatched during a Tough Mudder reunion in February down in Nashville. And myself and Ron Smith and Amber Hicks thought, hey, it'd be a great idea to get a bunch of folks together and just push each other to that 50-mile goal, hold each other accountable in training, hold each other accountable as we prepare for the event. So I went home that weekend and I thought, well, we might get maybe 12, 15 people. And within 24 hours of creating the group and putting it out to the public, we had over 160 members. And at this point, we've got over 200 members all looking to get that brown bib in Las Vegas in November.
So once they get their 50-mile bib, we're going to kick them out of the group?
Not at all. What I'd like to see is have this be a regular group year to year, Will, where folks who met the goal and exceeded 50 miles, if they want to stay in the group, they're more than welcome. I've actually got a few people that have commented to me in the 50-mile group that they want to hit 75. And by all means, we're not looking to hold anyone back. We want everybody to hit their goal, no matter what it is. But I'd like to keep some of those folks as resources for future World's Toughest Mudders to share ideas and let them know what worked on nutrition, what worked on gear selection, the best type of shoe, the best, every facet that you can imagine going into Worlds. I'd like to keep 8 to 10 to 15 folks on year after year that will continue to advise or answer questions or what have you for those new people each year that want to hit 50 miles.
So if someone's looking for the group on Facebook, how should they search for the group?
Well, if they go onto Facebook, where you can access myself, Jay Ruggiero. You can add me as a friend to get into the group. Just let me know that you'd like to join. If you know someone who's in the group already, they can add you as well. And you can also do a search in the Facebook website for WTM 50-mile team, and it'll come up there.
Jay, you ran Toughest Mudder Atlanta. What did you think of the 8-hour event?
Will, I thought the 8-hour event was excellent. The format is something that is extremely challenging, just getting through those overnight hours. My personal opinion is that it's a great training ground for those folks who are looking to run World's Toughest Mudder, because it's something that previously we haven't seen during the quote-unquote regular season. It's always been either a Tough Mudder going 10 to 12 miles during the day or a Tough Mudder half, things of that nature. When you get up to the evening events, that's when the mental games start to come in. World's Toughest is pretty well lit throughout the course. You've got a pretty good idea of where you're going, even if you do have a headlamp and strobe and things like that. However, when you get into the woods in Atlanta at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, it's pitch black. And all you can see is what your headlamp broadcasts on. So it's a great training ground to get through that mental intimidation factor that Tough Mudder tries to bring to the program.
Atlanta was spooky. I've run 3 toughest now. In Atlanta, you come out of the woods into this field, and it's foggy, and then maybe a quarter mile up ahead, there's this giant light, and you don't know what that light is for. It looked like you were running through the X-Files.
It really did, Will. And coming into that field, it was a little challenging because that fog layer, it couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 feet off the ground. It was a very low fog. So as you were running with your headlamp, it made it hard to see the directional arrows and stay on course. But I remember that very vividly as well, coming down off that hill, and all you saw was mist, if you will.
How did you do on the event?
I had actually lost a very dear friend. A lifelong friend passed away of cancer the day before. The friend that I was running with for pacing actually fell going into Block Ness Monster and was briefly knocked unconscious. So he was medically eliminated, and unfortunately, the mental portion got the best of me that night. And I finished with only 10 miles. However, I'm going to Chicago in a couple of weeks, and my goal there is to hit the 25 miles to get that contender status, if you will, for Worlds.
You mentioned the mental part of it a couple times. Talk about that. It's a legitimate, a real part that a lot of people don't consider going into the races.
You're absolutely right. It's every aspect of your training. You will question, you'll have self-doubt, you'll have frustration, you will have successes as you get through obstacles that you may not have thought you could. It's an emotional and mental roller coaster throughout the night. Much the same as what can you push through. That mental component is as much a factor as your physical training, as your strength, as your endurance. You need to be able to, and this is one of the things I've worked on quite a bit, put things in perspective as you run, as you encounter obstacles, as you encounter challenges. It just speaks to everyday life. Things go wrong, and you just need to work through it, and that's life. That endurance portion of the night and the mental self-doubt, if you will, creeps in, especially during the evening hours. And when it does, you need to be able to rise above it and be stronger than that to push through and make it till morning.
Have you seen the Toughest Mudder TV show on CBS about Atlanta?
Yes, I have. I was fortunate enough to catch it when they aired it about a week and a half ago, and it was very true to form. A lot of good footage. I really like the format that CBS has brought to the public as far as Toughest Mudder events go. And as you can see from the battles that Ryan Atkins and Trevor Sykos and Lindsey Webster and Stephanie Bishop bring to the table, that's exactly what you see. And the camaraderie holds true on course. And that's one of the things, unfortunately, that I haven't seen the cameras capture yet is Ryan, who is one of the most elite athletes in OCR in the world, will say hello to me and wish me well and keep me pushing through at 4:00 in the morning when he's passing me on the course. I am by no means elite. I'm 43, so unfortunately my potential to be a contender has long passed me by. However, that camaraderie holds true throughout Tough Mudder, no matter what event you're running, no matter where you are. And I'd really like to see CBS start to capture more of that human element as opposed to just the top 4 or 5 each week.
Yeah, it's hard to capture that because that human element is it's everywhere out there, but it's not planned. It's not, I don't know how you say it. The race is like there. It's going to happen. There's going to be a competition, but you don't know where those human moments are going to happen.
Exactly. And the wonderful thing about running Tough Mudder, regardless of whether the cameras capture it or don't, regardless of whether the public sees it or don't, every Tough Mudder that's out there has multiple stories to share of that human kindness, that human interaction, that extra. There's just a feeling about it with the camaraderie and the friendships and the family that is built in Tough Mudder that can't be replaced. Some of my closest friends have been made over the last few years through the Tough Mudder communities. And the acts of kindness, the things that have been done for fellow mudders who have encountered life-changing hardships is just amazing. And it's what's great about, I guess, human interaction and human nature. It's what's great about society. And the more that can be spread to someone who's watching CBS and hasn't seen a Tough Mudder, the more people will get involved and get to run their first and join Legionnaire status and run Worlds. It's a wonderful experience for anyone who hasn't run one.
This weekend is Tough Mudder 5K, the very first ever 5K race held by Tough Mudder. At 3.1 miles this weekend in Nashville, Tennessee. Let's talk about the course and the obstacles, and then you can share your strategy for completing each obstacle. Looking at the course, it looks like it's flat. You're going to go around. Now, you're going to be running this weekend, correct?
Yes, I am. Yes, I'll be going out with the first wave at 8 o'clock in the morning.
One of the things they've promoted or they've said in the promotional material for this is that there will be no mud. What do you think about a Tough Mudder with no mud?
I have to admit, I kind of like the format. I think there are a lot of folks out there that would say, well, I don't know about getting dirty or banged up, and they want to be a weekend warrior. There are a lot of folks out there who, street runners, who don't really take to the trails too much, but they'd like to do something and join the community. And I think it's a great venue for them to try it out. It can lead to them deciding to run future mud events, if you will. I'm kind of looking forward to the new format and seeing what it's all about. I know last year or a couple of years ago, Tough Mudder was looking at doing an urban mudder, which I think is kind of a similar format, but I'm excited to run in Nashville. It takes place in the parking lots and around Nissan Stadium where the Tennessee Titans play. And I'm looking forward to checking out. There are about 6 or 7 obstacles that they look like they've carried over from the actual mud events. And there are a few that new names, new ideas that haven't really been touched yet. So, and Tough Mudder is great as far as giving you an abstract obstacle name so you don't really know what's in store before you get there.
Let's talk about the obstacles. After you start the course, there's a long run, probably the longest obstacle-free stretch of the whole course, before you hit the first obstacle, Pyramid Scheme. Tell me about Pyramid Scheme.
Pyramid Scheme is a great team building activity. It is about a 35-degree angle, and it's a straight wall, if you will, going up about 20 feet. So what you need to do is build a pyramid with your fellow 5K mudders, build a pyramid to get someone up to the top. And as you build this pyramid and you get more people up top, you basically start pulling your pyramid up. So it's a lot of hand-holding. It's a lot of making sure people don't slip, giving them footholds, whether it be by your ankles, by your hips, stepping on your shoulder, if you will. So it involves a lot of team-building activity. It'll be really difficult for anybody to get up it themselves, but it's a great avenue for everybody to work together to meet that goal and make it to the top.
Tough Mudder 5K has 10 obstacles. The second obstacle is Hero Carry.
Yes, Hero Carry is great because it's a one-on-one, so you'll get to a point where you will pick up a fellow mudder and carry them on your back. Some people do a fireman's carry. That's the method that I prefer to carry someone. Or they can just basically give them a piggyback ride. But they carry them a distance of 50 or 75 meters, and then they switch. So it's a good workout for the legs. And then you get back on the trail and start running again.
There tends to always be a photographer at Hero Carry for some reason. And I've gotten some great pictures. Some of my best Tough Mudder pictures have been at Hero Carry. They
do get some awesome pictures at Hero Carry. One of my favorite pictures was from September 11th last year at Tough Mudder, Pittsburgh, where Cody Brown and I went through hero carry, one of us carrying an American flag and one of us carrying a 9/11 remembrance flag. And that's one of my most favorite moments from all of my Tough Mudders that I've run.
The next obstacle is Devil's Beard. Tell me about Devil's Beard.
Devil's Beard is a little tricky. It can snag some people up. You need to have a good strategy going in. It is basically a single or a double elastic cargo net that you need to crawl or shimmy your way underneath from throughout the length. Some people will go through and do a trench crawl to get through it and reduce the amount of pressure the net puts on them. Other folks, and the method that I prefer is I will normally walk through bending my back as much as possible and kind of keep my head underneath the stress of the net. And I will basically walk through hunched over at the waist, helping other people who want to trench crawl because it takes the pressure off of them. But it's about anywhere between 40 and 60 feet long, and your legs get a workout getting through it.
Jay, do you go head first or butt first when you're walking like that?
Normally, I'll try and go head first, unless if it's a nighttime event or something where I've got a headband or a strobe or some sort of anything you have on your head can get caught up in that net really quickly and get you all twisted up. So if you've got anything like that, Devil's Beard is also notorious for ripping off bibs from people who have them safety pinned to their backs. That's normally a good resting place for lots and lots of Tough Mudder bibs.
The next obstacle after Devil's Beard is skid marked.
So skid marked is an inverted wall. It varies depending on the venue, anywhere between 8 and 10 feet tall. And some folks like to make the attempt to jump up and grab the top of the wall and do a muscle up to get themselves over it. Other folks prefer to get a little bit of a boost from someone to get them up to the top of the wall. And then typically, once you're up at the top of the wall on the backside of skid marked, they normally have tires or boards where you can kind of prop yourself up and help other mudders get up to the ledge and get over as well. So it's another good team building activity, and normally not one of the more challenging ones, but it can still get a little squirrely.
After skid marked is bump and grind. Do you know bump and grind?
I do not know bump and grind. This looks to be one of the new ones. I've done some Google searches and YouTube searches, and unfortunately, I haven't found anything on it as of yet. So it might be a surprise to new mudders and legionnaires going down to Nashville this weekend.
Looking at the map, in addition to the words for each obstacle, they also have a little picture, and it looks like either a slinky wrapped around itself, like a big circle, or a giant tire, maybe. I know there have been a few courses where they send you over giant tires.
Yes, there have been a couple courses where they send you over giant tires, and also they've done the round bales of hay as well that you have to work your way up and over. So that's a very good possibility.
Yeah.
Again, just normally you can get over those individually, but if you need to get a boost, there's always someone there to help you get up and over it.
Yeah, if you kind of squint at the picture, it could be a hay bale, I guess, from the top. The big thing with the tire obstacles isn't getting up it, it's getting down safely. You got to be real careful with watching your footing so you don't end up twisting an ankle or jamming a knee.
Absolutely. And depending on the age of the tire and the size of the tire, those treads can often cause some ankle injuries and twist you around in ways that you don't necessarily want to go.
After bump and grind is a water stop about halfway through, and the next obstacle is the sandbag carry.
Yeah, so the sandbag carry is pretty cut and dry. The sandbags are probably between 30 pounds or so, maybe down to 20 pounds, but they Just whatever way works best for you. Some people will carry them across their belly like a bucket. Some people will just toss them over their shoulder and keep going. So it's just on personal preference, but they'll have you carry it most likely around a loop so that you can return it back to the place from which you found it and then continue on your drive. But a lot of heavy leg work looks to be the case for this 5K.
You know, we've done a lot of sandbag carries at World's Toughest or at Toughest Mudder as part of a penalty, but I don't know if I've ever done the sandbag carry as its own obstacle. I'm trying to think, and I don't think I have.
Yeah, I don't believe I have either. I know for the tougher wave this year, the only thing close is they're making competitors pick up their own bag of ice and carry it a distance before they dump it into Arctic enema and jump in after it.
After the sandbag carry is Berlin Walls.
Yes, so Berlin Wall is another good interaction obstacle, if you will. So probably about 10 feet tall, if I'm not mistaken. Normally, these are vertical walls. So unlike Western New York this past weekend, they were kind of leaning downhill a little bit. So they almost looked like a reverse skid mark. However, these vertical walls on the front side will have a board, maybe 2.5 feet above the ground where you can get a foothold. They're normally braced with angle iron or angled wood to keep them vertical, so you can also use those to help maybe give yourself a boost. Again, some people like to just hit the 2x4, jump up, grab the top of the wall, and do a muscle up and over to do it individually. Or you can also have someone help you up with a boost to get you up to the top of the wall. And then over on the backside, they normally have a 2x4 mounted maybe 3 feet from the top that you can jump down from. But it is normally a long drop, and so you don't hit your nose or your chin or anything on the wall. You want to tend to kind of kick out a little bit to land on terra firma and not hit any part of your body. But with it being a longer fall, again, to your point, you want to make sure that you don't jam a knee or twist an ankle or anything like that. You want to make sure you get a good landing posture.
After Berlin Walls is a little bit of running, and then the Hangover. Do you know the Hangover?
I do not. That's another one that I was looking up, and it's kind of new by me.
I don't either. Looking at the picture again, it looks like it's very similar to the skid marked picture, except that it is 2 walls instead of 1 wall that are at an angle. And they're also facing the opposite direction as the wall in skid marked. And so one obstacle that I've seen at other obstacle course races is an inverted wall that you basically run up, which may be what this is. But I'm speculating here.
Wasn't there an obstacle that Tough Mudder had, something like blades? I want to say it had blades in the name, but that sounds somewhat familiar as far as, getting a running start to get up to the top. Kind of like not as far as Pyramid Scheme, but something you could do individually by running up this steep incline to get a handhold.
One of the things I love about all these different courses that are coming out, like the 5K and the Toughest, is they can bring these obstacles back that have been, in retirement for years, maybe from the first or second or third year of Tough Mudder, and just kind of drop them in there. And some of these are brand new to me, like the Hangover. That might be an old obstacle. I've just never heard of it before. So,
yes, and with the age of Tough Mudder now, since I only started in 2014, again, to your point, there may be, I'm sure they probably have file cabinets or folders on their computers full of obstacles that, hey, why don't we resurrect this? Nobody has seen it before or hasn't seen it in a long time. Might have been a fan favorite 5 years ago, and they decided to bring it back.
The 9th obstacle is Ape Shit, and I do not know this obstacle either. I would imagine it's something Funky Monkey or Kong related, but the picture is just a picture of a monkey or an ape. It doesn't give us a lot to go on.
Yeah, again, they're big on leaving a couple wild cards. I know during some of the overnight toughest events, when the maps have come out, there have actually been question marks or something that had nothing to do. They use these little icons, if you will, so that they don't really show their hand. So I'm anxious to see what that ninth obstacle is, because it leads up to what is quite possibly the toughest obstacle for last.
The last obstacle is Everest 2.0. How do you get up Everest 2.0?
Everest 2.0, the initial Everest, I believe, was a 12-foot wall. It looked just like the wall for American Ninja Warrior. It had a squared top. So you had something tangible to get a hold of when you got to the top. The new Everest 2.0 looks more like a skate park. So it's a quarter pipe, but up they've rounded it so that you don't really, unless you get a very good jump and a great run and good traction, you can't really get your hand over the lip, which is it's recessed about 2 feet behind the actual wall going up. The best thing to do in my case, and how I've had success over the years, is start at the bottom, start with a jog, but build your speed as you get to the quarter pipe. As you're going up the quarter pipe, run as fast as you can to get as high, keep driving your legs, and there will be someone reaching down to grab you. And always go for multiple people and multiple hands so that you don't pull anybody back over with you. But once you've gotten your hands over and you've grabbed someone, they'll work to pull you up, swing a leg across if you have to, and then get over that lip and pull yourself up. It's a challenging obstacle, but I think given that this new 5K format is mud-free, I think unless it rains, that may make things a little bit easier on Everest, because part of the challenge of Everest is the mud and the water and not being able to get good traction going up the quarter pipe. In this case, that might be a little bit easier because you don't have those challenges that you do at a regular Tough Mudder.
Half of the fun of Everest is after you get up, you kind of relieve the guy who helped you get up, then you turn around and help the people up behind you.
I love being able to do that, and one of the things that I've seen in some of the social communities this year that I think is wonderful and a great accomplishment for people to challenge themselves, some of the items like pyramid scheme, like Everest, there are some of the obstacles out there where individuals are going and posting up at the top of those obstacles and making sure they help 100 people in one sitting or session, helping 100 people to reach their goal. And I think that's another great aspect of Tough Mudder, always coming up with new and inventive ways as a community to improve the brand and improve the experience and challenge themselves as well, because when you pull a few people up at Everest, your arms and your shoulders will feel it. So you can only imagine how sore you are after doing it 100 times.
You know, I'm thinking back to what we just talked about there being no mud and how it might be easier to do Everest or Pyramid Scheme, for example, because there's no mud. But when I first started Tough Mudder back in 2012, they used to have bottles of Crisco out there, or not Crisco, but cooking oil, and they would walk up and down the top just dumping cooking oil on the ramps. So
yes,
I will be interested to see if they go out of their way to make it harder, or if they're okay with, it not being a slick wall for the 5K crowd, the 5K distance.
It's quite possible, Will, because I even remember just last year when I ran Tough Mudder Ohio at the top of Pyramid Scheme. There was somebody with almost like for sake of a better term, a pesticide sprayer or a garden sprayer. And they were going along and spraying the top. And that was with mud as well. So they may have that trick up their sleeve, or they may decide to keep it a relatively casual event to try and bring new fans and new mudders into our ranks.
What are your thoughts on Tough Mudder having a 5K course. They used to have signs on course kind of making fun of people that would do a 5K distance. Something like they said something to the effect of not finishing 10 miles is nothing to be ashamed of. Signing up for a 5K is. What do you think about Tough Mudder holding a 5K race or event, rather?
Well, I think it's a good move by Tough Mudder headquarters. TMHQ has done a lot in recent memory to help, like I said, expand the brand, bring more people into the fold, kind of welcome all athletic calibers, if you will. And I believe that one of those things that's wonderful about this community is constantly challenging people. 3.5 years ago, I had never even thought of running a Tough Mudder. Since then, I've run 16. I've run World's Toughest Mudder. I've run an overnight toughest Mudder. I've run a Tough Mudder half. It allows people to get involved and to get active and to get off the couch. It's opening up that brand to folks who said, I don't know if I can do 10 or 12 miles and 25 obstacles in the mud, but it's a jumping off point. It's something to get them started. And as they come out and see the community and the community encourages them, they may turn around. It may be a good starting point for someone to start a new exercise regimen. It may be a promotion to get someone to lose weight and improve their health. I know that's what it was for me. So I think it's a great move by Tough Mudder to expand to the 5K. And, okay, we may be playing down how much we're running or how far we're running, but we're also getting into geographies that folks may not be able to do previously. So I think it's a wonderful move by Tough Mudder, and I hope that the 5K is here to stay and that they do more cities next year so that they can get more people involved. I just got the email, I believe last week, that we had eclipsed 3 million unique Tough Mudders. It's mind-boggling to think that in the United States, and I understand folks have run overseas, and we've got a very good contingency or a very good group in Europe, and we've got folks that run Tough Mudder in Australia and Canada and all over the world now. But to put that in perspective, roughly 1 in every 100 people in the United States has run a Tough Mudder. That's pretty good numbers, and it's only growing. So I think this number will help to get more people involved, and it'll help to get more people active and off the couch. And the TV shows that are out there for Toughest and Worlds and CBS partnering with Tough Mudder, it's going to promote things even more and more to get people more and more involved, which just promotes a healthier society.
Jay Ruggiero, any last thoughts on Tough Mudder 5K and World's Toughest Mudder?
No, just the feedback that I hope that everyone is keeping up with their training. There's the old quote that if you believe you can, or if you believe you cannot, you are correct. So positive outlooks, positive energy yields positive results. So I hope that everyone that I see on the course at Worlds in Las Vegas, November 11th and 12th, meets their goals. I will do whatever I can on course to help you meet your goals, and hope you'll do the same in return, and look forward to celebrating the culmination of another great Tough Mudder season come November.
Jay, have fun at the 5K this weekend. Let me know what the headbands look like.
I will definitely post a picture, Will. Thank you so much for the opportunity to do a webcast with you.
Special thanks to Jay Ruggiero for appearing in this episode. Well done, Jay. Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes and find us on Facebook, facebook.com/World's Toughest Pod. Thanks a lot, you guys.